Cool. So, I'm going to switch to English, stay in English for a little while. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's our pleasure tonight.
Wait, no,
to
hold on. Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. Go ahead, clap. Give yourselves a round of applause. So, tonight we have the privilege. Just to give you a little background on how this went down. Jose Vega and I, we've been talking for the past couple of months about this collaboration, this project that showed up, and we thought it was a great opportunity for the local artist community to have, not just a conference, but mostly workshop, some hands-on experience from the hands of industry experts that could come here and give their 5 cents on how the industry works and show you a little bit of the technique and the skill and the mindset behind all these great illustrations, animations, and art we see day in, day out in films, movies, comic books, so on and so forth. So tonight we have 3 distinguished guests and a 4th that's even more distinguished. No, he's not undistinguished. By no means. Let me finish. No. We have Jose Vega. We have Carla Ortiz. And Juan Fernandez. And I saved the best for last because thanks to this gentleman right here, this entire activity is possible. He is the founder of Gumroad. His name is Sahil Lavingia. And this has all been possible thanks to him. So Sahil, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. It's a great experience for the kids. The kids, they're all grown up. I'm sorry. I see them as my kids. We're all kids here, so. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you the mic and let you do your thing. So let's hear it for Sahil.
Will this work? Oh, sweet. Awesome. I won't be too long because I think you're probably not here for me. But I am also an artist, so I'd like to start by showing off my portfolio. I paint. This is an oil painting that I did, San Diego. This is an ear. The best ear I have ever painted. This is the rest of the head. What else have I done? That's the only stuff I'm really proud of, to be honest. This is a figure drawing. Anyways, so yeah, I'm an artist. It's what I do for fun when I'm not running a technology company. So if you're not familiar with Gumroad, Gumroad is a service that helps creators, artists, musicians, designers, writers, filmmakers, stand-up comedians, anyone sell content on the internet, and lets people buy stuff from those folks as well. It looks a little bit like this. You can. We just launched this thing actually. So for example, if you're interested in drawing and painting, you can see this this marketplace. You can go buy a bunch of stuff from artists. We take 5%. Our business model, basically, we charge like a slight fee, so that the artists can take home the vast majority of the revenue. And then even some of our profits, we redistribute it back into the community events like this with this thing called the Gumroad Creators Fund, which we are trying out this year and seeing how it goes. This is an example of a storefront. You can just click through. These are some amazing gouache brushes you can buy. You can say you want to pay $30 for them. You hit pay, and you can pay for stuff. It's awesome. And I just wanted, so that's the company. If you're interested, you can go take a look. This isn't really a sales pitch. I'm interested in talking about the history of the company and why we do stuff like this. And if you're interested, yeah, happy to answer any questions as well. But I think it's interesting. So I'm a creator. I started Gumroad. Before Gumroad, I was the second employee at Pinterest. Yeah, no big deal. No big deal. This is all it takes. This is it. Actually, one thing I love about going to workshops like this is you like meet these artists and you realize they're just like normal people that spend a lot of time on the computer. So I know my mom was like, "Don't be on the computer. You're never gonna need to do this when you grow up." And I was like, "Ha." Sure. She probably spends more time on the computer than I do, to be honest. But yeah, I learned iOS development growing up abroad for free on the internet, as you can do now, which is pretty awesome. And that got me the job at Pinterest. And then I started Gumroad. I thought it was going to be a $1 billion company. I was living in San Francisco at the time. And that's what I did. So I left Pinterest financially, very stupid, to start this company. Launched it, built it over a weekend. So Friday night, I had the idea I wanted to sell this pencil icon. And then Saturday, Sunday, just like staying inside. Built Gumroad and launched it Monday morning. It kind of blew up. All these investors started reaching out to me, and so I said, I'm gonna go do this full time. So I left Pinterest, raised money, raised $8 million from a bunch of folks like Max Lefton, who co-founded PayPal, and a bunch of, was that a clap or I don't even know. I'll take it. A single clap. I've never received that before. $8 million, a single clap.
There's more where that came from.
That's
There you go.
That's very unimpressive. The problem is trying to take that $8 million and turn it into something larger than $8 million. And so I tried doing that. This is what our graph looked like for the first 3 years. So this was just me bumming around, $8 million in my bank account. And then I built a team, did that whole thing, and grew Gumroad in this fashion. And to me, this looked pretty awesome, right? Up and to the right, that's what they say. Not good enough. Not good enough at all if you're raising venture capital. So we went out to raise more money. We were burning something like $350,000 a month, as one does in San Francisco. It's just the way it goes. And so we had to do a round of layoffs. We couldn't raise any more money, so we went down from 20 people to 5 people, and then basically from 5 to 1. So it was just me running the whole thing. Beauty of software, I could do that. And things continued to go really pretty well. This weird thing happened where in software, like the company, the business was we did this massive round of layoffs. It was in the news. I was like this hotshot teenager, and now I wasn't. But the company continued to do really great. So if you look at the graph now, and by the way, if you're interested, you could just Google reflecting on my failure to build a $1 billion company. Where's that graph? This is what the graph looks like now. So it's doing awesome. Still a tiny team, all remote. We got rid of that $25,000 a month office in San Francisco, if you can believe. I know. It's like a really sad joke, but it's not a joke. It's not a joke. Yeah, don't move to San Francisco. If you don't, it's stupid. It's fun, but expensive. You can ask Carla about living in San Francisco as an artist. But now things are great. We can do things like this. We're profitable. I don't want to go into that path again. And so I'm like, hey, we have all this money coming in now. I don't want to build a crazy team anymore. What do I want to do? I like painting and drawing and being a creator myself. So maybe I'll just take that money and give it to creators and let them do cool stuff with it. And so, yeah, so that's awesome.
Amen for that.
And this is, I don't know if anyone's actually reading this as I go, but this is the quote that I really love. I was at this CEO summit and Bill Gates was there speaking, and John Doerr, who's on the board of Apple, another billionaire. Just 2 billionaires having a chat. It's great. It's so weird, like talking about it now. It feels like a delusion or a dream. But John Doerr asked Bill this question, like, "Hey, Apple's like killing you. Microsoft is only worth $200 billion. What are you doing? Do you feel terrible for sort of like I know, paraphrased, but basically something like that." And Bill says that's what companies do. They create this value, right? Like they created the personal computing industry and they captured relatively a small percentage of it. Maybe trillions and trillions of dollars in value. Microsoft at the time was worth maybe $200 billion. Apple $600 billion. And that's fine. And I just love that dichotomy of like capturing value and creating value. Capturing sounds like violent. It's so aggressive and like it seems like you're enforcing your will on somebody else. And creating value seems like productive and additive, and no one is suffering. Like you're not forcing anyone to do anything. And as a company that helps creators, I just love that framing of like creating value and capturing value. Which one would you rather do? And so that's sort of been my mantra for the last couple years. Since the layoffs were in 2015, is like, how do we create value? Things like this event, things like open sourcing all of our financial data, so you can like go on Twitter and see these numbers. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter too. I'd appreciate that. That's the real ulterior motive here. Just really trying to build up my audience. I'm just at SHL on Twitter. That's one of the perks of living in San Francisco. You get handles like that. And get verified too. Ooh, I know. We have these like secret meetups and stuff. No, we don't. We don't do that at all. And yeah, that's basically what we've been up to. These are some of the other projects we actually raised money for the hurricane relief efforts over here in last year. Yeah, we basically said we saw actually one of our creators do this, and we thought it was a great idea. So he donated all his profits that he made one day to Puerto Rico, and I said we can just do that for the whole company. We process $6 million a month, so around $200,000 a day. Let's tell everybody. By the way, if you buy anything on Gumroad in a week from now or something, all our fees will go to some hurricane relief efforts in Puerto Rico. We did another one for the floods in Kerala, India, where we have a couple employees. So yeah, it was pretty easy. We raised $10,000 in a day, which was really cool. And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out now is like, how do we just create more value? We raised a bunch of money. We've sent over $225 million to creators and counting. We're launching a Patreon competitor soon, so hopefully that does really well. We might even launch a Kickstarter competitor. We'll see for crowdfunding. So that's kind of like my path. If you're interested in technology software, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I wanted to talk not too long. If you want to learn how to oil paint as beautifully as I oil paint, you can also ask me questions on that.
That ear looks amazing.
Thank you. And that's all I have. That's all. So yeah, thanks for listening to me rant.
Awesome.
And I will hand it over to the one and only.
Well, that's going to be tough to follow, but let's try.
We found your DVD.
Yeah, we just went to your DVD.
Sorry.
Hold on. I haven't updated my DeviantArt in a really long time.
Instagram.
Of course.
Show check.
There we go. So, yeah, in English or in Spanish?
However,
Are you guys okay with English? Okay, let's do it. So, hello, my name is Juan Fernandez. Like all of you, I was born and raised here in the island. Boricua. I was born in Ponce, raised in Aguadilla, so Jíbaro del Campo. But I moved to Florida, where I studied with these two. Yeah, what can I say? I've been in the comic book industry for 12 years now, trying to put the island on top. I've been working with companies like Marvel, DC, been doing some packaging art for Hasbro with all their Marvel Legends toys and G.I. Joe toys, all the fun stuff. But yeah, what can I say? What can I say? Yeah, that was a tough act to follow, man. You're making me feel like crap here. But if you guys want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram, Juan7Fernandez. That's like my my nickname everywhere. So if you go on Facebook, you can find me through 17 Fernandez as well. I am currently working on a bunch of stuff for DC Comics, so stay tuned for all that stuff. It's going to be in your comic book stores in the upcoming months. And yeah, that's about it.
Yay! Sorry. My phone's flashing. I'm like, stop it. Yeah. What up? Hola, mi gente, ¿cómo estamos? Yeah. Yo soy de Bayamón. I'm just saying.
Tell it like it is.
So yeah, born and raised here, constantly, always drawing as a kid. Those who took my workshop, who took my workshop here today? That's my group. Hey, what's up, guys? What up? So they know what happened because I kind of gave them the lowdown. But I was just been painting, and ever since I was a kid. I went to La Central de Artes Visuales here in Puerto Rico. Took classes with El Señor Vega Luciano, who is a tough son of a bitch. He's wonderful. And then I left to go to the college where we all did study there. But that does not mean it's a good college. It's not this. It's really just not good. I don't remember most of, I remember you, but I don't it's because we were all kind of transitory. Yeah. But that's a funny note. We were all there once. That's cool. And then I just been painting up and down. Had a bit of a rough patch when I was in college, where I quit art, mostly because I was just not doing the wonderful work that I wanted to be doing. I was constantly comparing myself to other artists. And so I quit art for about 2 months or so, where every time I pick up a pencil, I'd just be like, no, this is too hard. I can't do it. My father's a musician, so I gave him a call, and I was going to fess up. I'm like, all right, it's time to tell him. And my dad's like, Carla, Dios mío. Listen, you're not an artist unless you want to quit at least once. So that I took to heart, and it actually made a very negative experience a really positive one, because I learned that through failure is how we learn, and it's not something we should ever be afraid of, and that art isn't necessarily an extension of your value as a human. It's just something that you do as a human. You can put your thoughts in it, your ideas. It's a language like any other language. Like, you wouldn't start learning a new language and then be like, I can't get this word right. Rah! You'd be crazy. You'd be like, okay, I just got to practice it. And art is the same way. I then moved to San Francisco from Florida. Florida sucks. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Ay, vente pa Florida, está chévere aquí en Orlando. No. Tell her no. Or him. Sorry if I kind of come in. I'm a little sniffly, too. And then I went on a road trip from Florida to San Francisco with like $1,500 in my bank. Yeah, I know. What's up? That was some yeah, hell yeah. That was in 2012 around there. So it was a little cheaper, but not by much. So, yeah. It did last me for 25 days. I was like, oh shit. But I did go to like a traditional school that taught me how to observe and taught me all those things. After a year, I got scooped up by NC Soft doing, no one's gonna know this, but doing City of Heroes. That one person. Yo, what's up? Yeah, it's a millennial. It's a millennial thing. It's not a Zoomer. And then that sucked. So I went to another job at Kabam, which is a mobile game company, which seems silly. You're like, oh, a mobile game, whatever. But I actually ended up working with some really big heavyweights in industry, Alan Williams, Brian Mattias, Mitch Morehouser. If you don't know who any of these people are, you should look it up. They're good people. And so on. And I just really loved that place. Took a quick workshop with a Brom and Mr. Ian McKegg. And that's how I got in touch with the people who would later on give me jobs, Ian, in the film industry. And I joined, that's when I joined Industrial Light and Magic. They're the folks who do Star Wars. They're the folks who do visual effects for almost every major company or almost every major movie. And that was a really, really, really fun time. I got to work on a bunch of movies that you cannot see on my website because they don't allow you to release any of the artwork, and that's Disney. And if you piss off Disney, you piss off the mouse. You don't want to do that. But I got to work on World of Warcraft, Lucy. I even worked a little bit on the BFG. That was really, really fun. Jurassic World, and I was one of the first concept artists in Rogue One. I was there in the room when they said, I'm going to spoil it for you, but, like, it's your fault. You need to see it. But I was there in the room when, like, the director was just like, and so, yeah, everybody dies. I'm like, so, like, all these paintings of cast members I've been doing, they all die? He's like, yeah, but it's for good reason. And I'm like, horrified. Things got slow at ILM. That just happens in film or games or anywhere in general. Just things get slow, and what happens? Layoffs. Hey. Layoffs happen. They do. Yeah, this isn't like your grandma's time where you could spend 20 or 30 years in a company. Not anymore. But then from ILM, I ended up going to Marvel. And I've been with them on and off for about 4 years now. And that's where I got to work on movies such as Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame, and a bunch of new projects I can't tell you about. But most notably, Doctor Strange was my big one. Pretty much just because, like, he was, I completely designed him. I'm trying to full screen it. Oh. Oh, no. I like it us trying all these shortcuts when it just hit green. So that was a really incredible treat because so rare at least in movies, that something that you concept makes it completely definable. Film and games as well, TV, comics, it's all very like collaborative. So, when you go into these jobs, like, don't think like, it's me, the artist, I have a vision, and behold my vision, I'll put it on the screen. Yeah, that's not how it goes. It's usually like, hey, what do you think about this? Yes, but with this other concept and this other painting, and let's put it on this, or let's Frankenstein it all together, or keep doing revisions. It was one of the first ones where it was like we did like maybe about 3 weeks of concepting. They changed the direction of the script completely, and they were like, we want them to have like more ceremonial robes, more like cool robes. And I did this like, these are just sketches, but I did this sketch, this painting in like a very early sketch, just the final version. But I did like a sketch of this in a night of just like, I'm feeling it, and I'm painting and I'm feeling it, and I send it over, and they're like, yeah, keep working on it. When the time comes, did a little bit of BFX. This is like someone traveling through time, 5 seconds in the future, 5 seconds in the past. I thought it would make a really cool boss. Early inceptions of what like the sea lots could be. I just went wild. I had fun. This one was fun. These were really fun. And even just like little things like, we need eye makeup for Caecilius. I'm like, okay, we got eye makeup. You got it. And this just keyframes as well. That's something that we do in our job. So I really, really loved doing this particular project. Funny note was that I got to go to the premiere, and I got to see Benedict Cumberbatch. He's a lot shorter than you think he is. Oh, that I hurt your dreams. He's not that short. He's like he's like 3'1".
He's not 8 feet tall. He's 7'4".
No. He's like I would say about 6'1" or so. Something that's great about seeing all these stars in real life. 6-ish. 6. No, shorter. He was wearing heels. So like I probably like 5'11".
That's a deal breaker.
Yeah. No. But his, the thing that's really great about these things is that you start to get to know the like bodies of people and all their weird, beautiful things. Are we recording? Okay, I'm not gonna say anything. You catch me later. But no, but seeing Benedict Cumberbatch felt really creepy because I'd been painting him for a whole year. So I felt like the world's biggest stalker. It was really awkward. But I also got to work on like Black Panther, and this was another project that I loved. Like the entire team was so excited because they just got the combination Ryan Coogler and like the entire like development team. So we got a chance to design everything. And this was one of those situations where not one design that I made got in, but a mixture of designs that I made mixed with other people's design got in. And it's funny because like I was doing Killmonger and was it Jackson? No, it's Rodney. Rodney Fuentabella is the guy who did the original one. And it was funny because I work remotely from San Francisco and they work in LA, and we were almost doing the exact same concept. Mask alternatives. This is, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a whole like scar tattoo in the back. It's very subtle. But then we went into an idea of more violent, like he stabs himself and scarifies the scarification on his body for every person he kills. He's horrible. I did a lot of Sudi of just like finding out what that is or finding out what the witch doctor looks like. Before we had casting, we just make our own people. That's really fun to do. These were the original gauntlets. They were gonna be wild. The director for a while was like, those gauntlets, and they were like, can we high tech them? And then he's like, fine. And then we ended up with something more like that. Psh. So again, lots of keyframes, and just really, really, really fun work. Really, and I really do love working with Marvel because I get to paint everything. I don't utilize pictures in my work. I like to paint things, even if it takes me just a little bit longer, but not by much. Dora Milaje, and so on and so on. I don't want to keep going. In my free time, I like to do lots of fine art. I love to do pencils. I love to do oils. It's nice to get away from the digital sometimes and have something tangible. I'm actually so excited for the fall because I get to clear my schedule out and finally just paint in oils. I have giant canvases at home. I want to paint crowd scenes now and just do awful things to my mind. So this is like, why do I do this? All right, I think I've babbled enough. Illustration. Wait, hold on. I've done lots of work for Magic the Gathering, for book covers, for Game of Thrones. This is Rhaegar Targaryen, and it was online for a while. And the best part about it is that it became a meme, because like when Rhaegar came out in Game of Thrones, like the internet was super pissed. But poor actor, it was like, this is what you imagine, and the face of the actor, this is what you get. And I felt really bad for the guy, but I also was like, yes. This is also based on a friend of mine, Wesley Burt, actually. Yeah, that's based off Wes Burt. I asked him to model. He's like, hell yeah, because he's a huge Game of Thrones nerd. This is another friend of mine who modeled for it. He's a very nice king that gets killed because he's nice. And Taysa, and I like to do a little bit of everything. I get bored very easily if I'm working on the same thing for too long, and I like the variety of switching between the digital and the analog. It's very fun. And now I'm in San Francisco with my cat, and my boyfriend, and my mama. She moved there because that's what mamas do. Yeah, I'm very happy about that. With all that said, here's Jose.
I don't want to say anything, no. Jesus. So I am going to donate my time so she can keep talking and showing her work. So hi, my name is Jose, and currently I'm the lead background designer for Castlevania on Netflix. And
That show's so good. Hell yeah.
so I can't see the. How do you scroll? This is a Mac. What the hell?
You scroll, just
Oh, there you go. Hate
Oh,
Macs.
yeah.
What the hell? Okay, so yeah, I've been here for 2 years. I started working here right after Maria, probably like a month after Maria, and
That's not stressful at all.
yeah, I know, right? But before that, I did about 5 years of freelancing here from the island, and working on illustration for like card games and doing some background animation work for some other projects and video game concept art and stuff. But yeah, so I don't know if Rodrigo mentioned it, but the way we wanted, or I wanted to run this part of the event is just to kind of give an open platform to you guys to sort of like just kind of talk with us type of thing, and us telling you what we do in the industry, and then sort of like leave it open for you guys to pretty much try to get as much info as you can from us, and so yeah.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Is there any 3D involved in this?
Yes. So first question, I like it. So
Yeah, I can ask questions all day.
yeah. So I mean, currently my pipeline is just I use a lot of 3D, and since this was gonna be like an actual project where I was gonna do, or I had planned to do multiple images, like at least 8 or 10. I build it up in 3D because it's just easier to do everything else after that, and then I'll do like a basic lighting, and then I just paint over it and do all this stuff. And that's mostly what I do in the studio anyways as well. So yeah.
Sweet.
So I think we're gonna go through like some questions from
Yeah,
the
I got some-
panel coordinator.
I got some questions for everybody upstairs. So, in either fashion, you got 2 mics. Whoever feels like answering can just jump into the fray.
I think we can all answer if like on order, sort of. I think.
You can go down the line. So, first question: how did you get where you are in the industry? What's your trajectory?
Do people care about my?
Of course, I care.
You are the first in line, sir.
Yeah, so I started as a web designer. So I actually I was telling Jose the story because we had a kind of a similar almost like start, where a friend of mine this is like middle school or something, got really into World of Warcraft and was designing those sprites, like these trolls and stuff. And I'm a pretty competitive person, so I was like, I could do that too. So I pirated Photoshop, and no one has ever done that. Don't do that. Yeah, I was gonna make a Pirates of the Caribbean joke, and never mind. No, it'd be appropriation. Yeah, so I started messing around with Photoshop, just like Googling around, like how do I do this in Photoshop? How do I do that in Photoshop? And eventually I wanted to make money so I could buy Xbox games. And that was like my currency of choice, Xbox games. And so I don't play video games anymore, unfortunately. I feel like something happens when you're an adult. It's like stressful. Now I just watch videos of people playing video games. It's great. Yeah, I need to get back into it. It's just me. And yeah, so anyways, I was like, okay, how can I make money doing this? And so I just Googled around, like and found out that people would pay people to enter these logo design competitions and these website design things. And I entered a bunch, lost them every single one, didn't win a single one for a year. But then people would pay me to do like really basic website designs, like different random things in the area. I was super cheap. I do like a website design for like $50. That would take me like 10 hours or something. It's ridiculous. Child labor, and but that got me into like you do that enough. Like I feel like it's probably similar. Like you do enough client work and you start having your own ideas. You're like, okay, what would like my world look like? What would my app be? Similar thing. And so I started having these ideas, and I wanted to basically I would make these static images in Photoshop, and that's all they were. They were just images. And so I started learning how to code so I could make them move. So I found these just videos on iTunes University from Stanford called CS193P, which are still available now, updated for whatever the new technology they use is. Learn how to code, and then started making apps. Started posting them on Hacker News, which is like this forum for nerds on the internet. And then Ben, who is the CEO of Pinterest at the time, reached out to me saying, "Hey, we need an iPhone app. Looks like you can design and build iPhone apps. Like, do you want to do this?" I was a freshman in college at the time. I said, "Sure." So I started doing freelance for them. That turned into a full-time job offer. And then I said I could either pay USC a bunch of money to learn this stuff, or I could get paid a bunch of money to learn this stuff. Math, my strong suit. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna bounce. Told my advisor, left USC. This is 2010. Moved up to the Bay Area, worked at Pinterest, and the rest is history.
So what was the question again?
How'd you get into the industry?
How did I get into the industry? Well, I feel like I was actually very fortunate because I got the job when I wasn't looking for a job. But, like everything, luck plays a little bit or a big part of your journey. But yeah, I put myself out there, and that's how I got the job without even trying to get the job. I always wanted to be in the comic book industry, so I did a lot of traveling in the States when I was in Florida with these two. Well, I didn't travel with them. I was in Florida with them. But I went to Comic-Cons. They're everywhere. So that's how I started socializing with a lot of the artists, a lot of the editors. I just got to know them very well. So over time, I knew what they were looking for, and without even thinking about it, I started bringing my portfolio to conventions. Eventually, I showed it to a comic book artist that I was starting to become friends with. He saw my stuff. I wasn't even looking for digital artist work. I always wanted to be a penciler, but like everyone, you got to learn what your forte is, and that's what you got to put forward. My portfolio had a lot of digital work in it that I had done, and he offered me a job on the spot. So that's where I think I was very fortunate. From there on, he hired me to work on his private book, which was independently published, aside from his work in Marvel. But the fact that he worked for Marvel put my work in front of all these other editors, and like I was telling my class earlier today, it's like a snowball effect. Once your work gets out there, if you don't mess it up, if you don't mess up your deadlines, and if your work is good, you're gonna keep getting work. And eventually his editor at Marvel saw my work, and he asked for my contact info. And sure enough, I started doing some work for Marvel right away. Shortly after I started working for Marvel, this one guy called Rob Liefeld saw my work. I'm sure you guys know who he is. He asked for me to do some color work for him, and it just grew from there, The funny thing is, once your stuff is out there and it's good, people are gonna approach you for it. Eventually, I started doing some work on, like I was talking about, Hasbro with the packaging art, which is awesome. Comic books can be stressful. So if any of you are wanting to get into the comic book industry, think about it twice. It's a lot of stress, but it's rewarding at the end of the day when you see your stuff published. What else can I say about how I got in the industry? Like I told my class earlier today, it's a snowball effect. Just as long as you keep up with your deadlines and you do good work, you put your best out there, people are gonna notice, and you're gonna keep getting the emails. You're gonna keep getting the jobs. Even if you get laid off, there's always more work ahead. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. So I kind of went over that question already when I talked, but I guess I could go a little bit more in depth. I didn't just magically get called up for work. My first gig was in the games industry, and this lady who I've been posting online forums for a while. Okay, hold on. Let me see if the secret link is up. I've been posting on online forums for a while, and it's up. No, it's not up. And she just remembered my work, and I was very open about my process as a student. I actually had an account on like a back then it was like a website, conceptart.org, and here's some of my older here's some sorry, here's some of my, I'm gonna go way back into the time machine. But it was just one of those things where like she saw my work and she just hit me up, and I was dead poor back then. It was like eating like dinosaur nuggets was like my thing. I just ate dinosaur nuggets. So she hit me up, and that was my first job in the industry. It took me a while to figure out how to be, a team player. This was some of the stuff I was doing back then. Here's some of my student work back when I was, this was before the atelier, back when I was in AI, hey. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I wasn't happy with, that's creepy. I wasn't happy with my work per se, because I realized that I was really exhausted, but I wasn't painting the things that I wanted to paint, because work was very demanding. It was just like, all right, here's you delivered this concept. So it was really the place for me to learn. So I would do a lot of like, online events. This was for a Guerrilla Art Fair, I think. And just like make paintings on my own. And eventually my friend left. She went to Kabam, and that's how I ended up out there. But I was constantly doing a lot of freelance work and doing like lots of like paintings. But this was the stuff that I was doing for Kabam. But one of the things that I was constantly doing as well, this is all the Kabam work. One of the things that I was constantly doing was going to a lot of conventions and building up my network, but not in a, hey, you're a person that can be in my network, be in my network. No, more like, hey, you're a person, let's hang out as person to person. And yes, I do paint. I would love your counsel. And I met a lot of really great artists, Greg Manches, specifically, who would constantly, I'd see, Irene Gallo, she works at Tor, and Greg Manches is just an incredible painter. And I'd see them throughout the years over and over, and I'd ask, what do you think about my work? What do you think about my work? And I did that for about 3 years before Irene was like, okay, I want to do a book cover with you. But every time I would learn something really valuable and really, really, really important. Even Magic the Gathering, I spent like 4 years submitting before they finally said, you're ready to go. And how I actually got Magic the Gathering was I was drunk at a bar. No kidding. It was a convention. I was drunk at a bar, and one of my friends in front of me is like, hey, Carla, can I see your work? I'm like, sure, no problem. And, he handed it off to the person next to me. It so happened to be Jeremy Jarvis, who is right now he's like the main guy at Wizards of the Coast. But back then he was like one of the biggest art directors. And so I got to do, I had shown him my Kabam work, and he's like, yeah, let's work on something. And that something ended up being Tesa, which is this painting right here. These are the steps for it. And the funny thing is that this painting is the painting that I showed Ian when I attended his workshop. And that's when he saw the painting. He's like, you're hired. I'm like, hired where? He's like, I don't know, but you're hired. I'm like, that's really promising. Okay. And I waited a while, and we got back in touch, and he's like, come visit me. And I'm like, oh, where? ILM. I'm like, cool. And I thought I was going to go for coffee. He's like, bring your work. Let's take a look at it. I'm like, okay, no problem. Well, it was an interview. It wasn't coffee. And that's how I got my break into the film industry. And it's kind of very similar to what's been said, where it's just like you kind of put one step forward, and I think some of it. I think luck is like a mixture of like time and preparation. Like, are you prepared for the jobs that you want to seek, and are you in the right places, or at least, especially now, it's easy because like you can show your work, put it online, and with the right like hashtag or the right like thing, everybody can see it. So like now it's so much easier. This is some old artwork. Everybody's waiting for their food. This guy couldn't handle it. And that's how I broke into the industry. But it was like a baby steps. It really was. It was just like the one thing that I did do is when I was a student, I gave myself the time to be a student. I was telling a couple of the students earlier that a lot of people, come on, that a lot of people are rushing, when they're supposed to be just really, really applying themselves to learning. So I did that when I was at the atelier. I'm trying to find some atelier work, and then I'll shut up. I'm sorry, Jose. I'm always so gabby. Shit. Well, it's because it's an older post. Hey. I haven't been in here for a while. But when I was a student, I was doing like very traditional, like lots of life drawing, lots and lots of life drawing in the most obnoxious way possible, where you're just like, fill in the grain of the paper and little by little. There's one more. Okay. I swear I'll stop. Here we go. So these are cast paintings. That was the original drawing, and that was the painting. This took about like 3 months to make. 3 months, 3 hours every morning. And it was one of those great lessons on how to take something to final. So I really devoted myself to being a student because I knew I wouldn't get a chance to do it again. And I was right. I didn't get a chance to do it again. This is all my student work. Oh, this is where I was a student. Oh. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to move on. Here you go.
You still remember the question?
Sorry.
So I had a very similar thing that happened to me, like Carla. Like after I graduated from the school that we went to, I started working as a 3D artist at a architectural firm for like 4 years, and I got laid off after that. And I actually quit art for like years. I think it was probably like 3 years that I didn't do any art at all. And during all that time, I know what it is to live in your car, not having somewhere to go. It was like just going to different types of work, working on stuff that you didn't want to. All that stuff happened. And after that, because of life, I ended up here. I think it was like 9 years ago or something like that. And a couple of years after that, I just made the decision that that's what I wanted to do, and I was like, I don't know, like in my late 20s maybe. It didn't matter like the work that I was working, because I remember I was working at a restaurant. I had two jobs. That I was working at a gym and a restaurant, but my routine was like I would wake up and I would watch Fenzu videos for like, whatever long the video was, and that was like my breakfast. And I would eat, I would do my two jobs, and then before I go to bed, I would do another video. And even though I would repeat them through like, a course of like a year, I just kept watching and kept drawing and stuff. And it was just like a constant thing. And I wasn't spending like, 12 hours painting like I do now before, but it was like constant. And, as I kept learning and learning, in I think it was 2012, December, I got my first email for my first freelance gig. And it was for like illustration for like a card game for Warhammer, I think it was. And after that, I just kept getting some little freelance work that wouldn't pay the whole bills, but in a course of time, I was able to do just one regular job and then just freelancing, and I was able to survive. And then, 2 years later, I was, full-time freelancing. And 3 years after that, I got the offer and the opportunity to work for Castlevania, and I just took it and, went to Austin, Texas, which is where I'm at, and just been there for the last 2 years. I still do some freelance on the side when I have time, but mostly it's just, that type of work. So yeah.
Sweet. All right, so moving on, in no particular order. Why don't you, any of you, go through a typical day at work? Like, what's your routine? How does that go? Aprovecha, aprovecha.
So it sort of varies from day to day. Like one day, before I was a supervisor there, most of my days were mostly I already knew what I had to paint, whether it was a color script or I had to design a location or do a final background for the animation. I sort of knew. But as a supervisor now, it's different because now I got to deal with, with storyboarders, character artists, the background team. Now we have a 3D artist, and so it could vary from, I could spend the whole morning, maybe in meetings with the team trying to figure stuff out that's happening in the season or whatever. Or, I could have 3 straight up days full on of, making models in 3D, painting them, getting to final so we can send them to the outsourcing. So it varies a little bit, way more now that, as a supervisor than before. But yeah.
It's changed a lot over the years. It used to be I would wake up and back when we had an office, this is the front of our office in San Francisco. This living wall is pretty cool. I would wake up, go to work, show up at 7 a.m. And oh yeah, I loved it. Oh yeah, sometimes I'd show up at like 5:30. It was amazing. No one in the office, freezing cold. Yeah, yeah. And I'd work before anyone would show up. I just basically clear out all my inboxes, all my product management, Slack, email, all that stuff. And then we'd have meetings starting at around 9, probably, meeting with the product team, design team, engineering team. Hopefully, ideally, only on Mondays. And then recruiting, just trying to find candidates. And then I'd basically just do that. Very reactive job. CEO of a company is basically just hiring really great people and then answering their questions, making sure that they have what they need, basically. That's sort of how I looked at it, at least. And then I'd probably leave. I'd go to the gym in the middle of the day for an hour and a half, including showering and everything. And then I'd work until 9-ish. And then I'd go home, read for an hour, sleep, do the whole thing again, 5 days, maybe 6. And then now it's very different. Sort of post-profitability gives you a lot more flexibility on what you want to do. We bought back most of the investors and stuff as well, so I can kind of dictate my own schedule. So now I wake up, and if I'm lucky, I can finish my whole workday before I get out of bed. Answer anything in Slack, in GitHub, in Notion, all our internal tools, and then I'm done for the day. Until somebody pings me, and then I have work to do. But yeah, I try to work as little as possible. This graph, which is kind of almost unorthodox. It would be weird. It's kind of weird to say that in Silicon Valley you're supposed to be working 60 hours a week. But I have this line in here, so I'll just read it out. The 8 years I worked on Gumroad were full of personal ups and downs. There were months where I worked 16 hours a day, and there were also months where I worked 4 hours a week. And you look at this, you can't tell. And so it kind of gave me this freedom to be look, I can work 16 hours a day if I want to, and sometimes I will. If I really want to build something, I'll the whole day on it. It's really easy for me to do that. But it's probably not going to inflect the growth of the business. And so I'd rather sort of just be, real with that and say I can work if I choose, but it's probably not going to return anything. So yeah, if and when I feel like it, I work. But I often paint, write, do other stuff. um, go to Puerto Rico, stuff like that. But you know, it's been 8 years since I started, so that affords you a little bit of flexibility. 8 years in to a profitable, sustainable company. Yeah.
For me, it's morphed over the years. I guess it depends on whatever stage you are in life. You know, I remember when I was in Florida, I did do work for an animation studio, and that was the studio life. So I would come in super early, probably 8, 9 in the morning, and the typical workday, you know, would end at 6. But in this industry, for the artists, there's no real closing time, and there were times where I would stay in the studio for 3 days in a row, nonstop working, taking naps, not sleeping, taking naps. No, it was beyond brutal. It got me to the breaking point, to the point where it made life very dark. Because when you're working that much, you know, what's the point? So don't let yourself get to that point, and don't let anyone take you to that point. Because that happened to me because I allowed that company to do it to me. And they'll do it. They'll squeeze it out of you. They'll have you work as long as you're, you know, as long as you let them keep you working, they're going to do it. But that changed, obviously. I quit that job. After 6 years of tolerating it, I quit that job. As I was already doing, I was, on top of working for the animation studio, I was doing comic book work on the side. So if I got off of work at 6 in the afternoon, I was going home to do comic book work until like 2 in the morning to go back to work at 8 in the morning the next day. So it was just constantly working. Now, granted, that's part of how you grow as an artist too, because when you do something for so long, so repeatedly, you're bound to get good at it, you know? So there was some positives to it. But, you know, I quit the animation studio and eventually ended up moving back to Puerto Rico. I've been here for 6.5 years now, almost 7. And I wanted to make the transition because Puerto Rico is more laid back. I was already established in my industry, so I didn't have to look for any more clients or anything like that. I had all my clientele, you know, on the computer, and everything's done online. So I became my own boss, full-time freelancing, and now I have 3 kids. So I still have to wake up super early to get them to school, which sucks. But after I drop them off, come back home, you know, around 9, and they come back home like around 4 in the afternoon. So I take a break from work at 4 in the afternoon and jump back on it when they fall asleep at 9 and go back to it till 3 in the morning. So I'm still slave driving myself. But you know, that's what we do. We're artists. We're into this because we love it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. The life of an artist is not easy. Some are more fortunate. They get better paying jobs. Some are not. But, you know, we all do it because we love it, no matter how much we get paid for it or not. And, yeah, that's my day.
Damn. My day is a mixture of everyone here now that I think about it. I used to be in a company, and in company, I normally would get in. Most companies I've worked with, you know, 10 is when you start. I've never been a morning person, so 10:15 is usually when I rolled in. But I would stay in a lot later. I'm more of a night owl kind of person, so I would stay in a lot later for sure. Back when I was in a company, I would work 8 hours because otherwise, why are you there? But that changed. I became freelance, or not necessarily freelance, but I work from home. Back when I jumped into Marvel, they were like, "Hey, do you want to come to LA?" I'm like, "Do I have to? Can I stay here?" They're like, "Yeah," and that became how I started working from home. Thank you. I've been working now from home for like 4 years, almost 5. and I personally love it because again, you do everything from the computer, and I manage my own time. So like with my clients, including Marvel, like I'll usually opt and ask, okay, when is the major deadline? Like, when do you need this by? When, I communicate a lot with my clients. It's like, okay, do you expect like process shots in the meantime? Like, what makes you happy? And I've worked with Marvel long enough to where they're like, hey, just send us like a sketch in the first couple days and then just the final and move on, because they trust me. And that's really nice. And so that means that my days can be anywhere from 8 hours, sometimes 4 hours, sometimes 6. Sometimes I get really into it or an emergency happens and I work 16 hours. So it just varies. The 16 hours are not fun. I'm definitely at a point in my career where I'm trying my best to not have those long days, because they take it out of you. At least for me, I need to have time for myself. I need to have time to do other things. I need to have time for my friends and my video games. I love video games. I will always play them. I do. There's a period where I'm like, no video games, because I'm a serious artist now. Not to say anything to those, but I realized that I was missing part of my inspiration. I was heavily inspired by anime and video games, and that's one of the drives that makes me paint. For some people it's traveling, for some people it's, spending time with family, whatever it is, or reading. For me, it was video games. So now, yeah, I work full time for Marvel, though I still take freelance. I say yes to a lot of gallery work, because if I don't say yes, if I don't have a deadline, I don't do anything. I'm like weird about that. Like I'll I'll do it one day. So that's how I force myself to like work extra time, but it's usually for like things that I'm really passionate about. So I'm pickier with my projects now. I used to say yes to everything, and that would put me in a lot of trouble. But yeah, my days vary. It's usually the standard for me is anywhere from like 6 to 8 hours. If I'm painting 6 solid hours straight, or 8 hours, some days I just do what I need in 4, and then I call it a day. That's good. Yeah.
Do you want to open some questions from the group? Yeah? Anybody got a question?
Ooh, let's talk.
Come on down. Don't make me walk. Oh, wait. All right. So we got one here and then over there.
Hello. My question might sound personal. This is free for anyone to answer. But I was wondering, like, this is like after you get hired in a company and you're working, how in the middle of working, you have your project, like, and something happens, like you get laid off, like, do you have in mind, like, your next project, or how do you handle that, like, mentally, like, oh, you got just laid off, and like, well, what's gonna be my next work, or you already had, like, something planned, like, is this more for, like, freelancers, like, well, not really freelancer, but something, sorry, it's too personal, but I was always curious about that.
I'll start and then I'll pass it over. But so I'm full time now with Marvel, but in the past like 3 years I was freelance because I did stop working with Marvel for a bit, and it does get a little scary sometimes, just because like you can have. I try to plan my if I don't have anything stable, like I'm working with a project stably for a while. I always have like my ear to the ground. I always have like new projects coming in, and I try to accommodate them in the year. But sometimes things fall. Like for example, I was supposed to work on back when Joss Whedon was supposed to be doing Batgirl. I was slated for that, but I waited months and months and months for that, but it never happened because talks fell down and they moved on, and so that's like a couple months of saying no to work when I should have. I'd had smaller things, but not major work. Sometimes stuff like that happens. So it's always if your goal is freelance, it's always important to have savings of some sort if you can, if possible, or at least have like supplemental income or other forms of income or other jobs, other smaller jobs, or clients that you trust that you're always like, I'm in a pickle, I need something now. For me, that's Magic. Magic will always have worked so I can always call them up. There's a couple clients that I will always are just like, hey, we want to work with you, so I'll call them up. Even now that I'm like strongly affiliated with Marvel, I still expect that, like, we're doing pretty good because we have a lot of movies and content coming up, but in like a span of like a year or two, things slow down. They always do. And it's just a matter of building a nest for yourself for those times.
You brought up a really good point, and that's why you have to network.
Yeah.
Networking is like one of the most powerful tools you're gonna have in this industry. No matter if it's comic books, movies, games, the art world, networking is gold because, like she mentioned, it happens in every one of these worlds, whether it be comic books, movies, whatever. It happens to me exactly like she said, where I'll be like super, super busy for like 3 months straight. And then I'll have a month where there's just nothing, where I'm just like, they tell me, hey, we got a project for you coming up. Be ready for it. We're probably going to start in 2 weeks. And 2 months can go by, and I've had them cancel the project like after 2 months of me waiting. And I've actually turned down stuff, expecting that project to come in, which is a big mistake. I try not to turn stuff down if it's from trusted clients or trusted people that I already work with. But like you said, you just got to be ready for the worst at all times because it's a very fluctuating world. And, these companies are looking to make investments with all these projects. And if at the very last minute they decide that it's not a good idea to invest money in a project, they'll kill it before they put any money into it. So you as an artist, you gotta do the networking so that when a project gets turned down, you, like she said, you can just call someone up and get you on another project.
Can I add on that real quick, and I'll pass it over to you guys. I just want to add on that real quick. Even with like, and again, I have a stable job with Marvel for a while, but back when I was freelancing, even just during the year, there were just empty periods, and they happen. They're very normal. Like, it usually starts around December, around the holidays, and then it's just dry, at least in film, it's dry until like end of February, March, because that's when people start like preparing for their pitch season, and that's when you'll get like hit up. And also another thing that I recommend too is don't just get stuck in one industry or one thing, putting your eggs in just one basket. I do film, I do illustration, I do fine art. I will never make money from fine art, so let's cross that one out. There's no money in fine art unless you're full of bullshit. It's true. We all know it. Just go see Adam Ruins Everything. It'll tell you what's up. But so I do illustration. I do card games. I do book covers on top of film work. I'm also open to do video games and TV. So it's just the ways on how the same skills that you already love to do, how can you apply them to different industries that don't have those same lulls?
I mean, that was pretty good. I don't know, when I got laid off, my life just went down, so I cannot give you any, because I haven't got laid off like recently. But one thing that I did learn when I was freelancing is like Bobby Shu, he said one thing that I always stuck in my mind when I was freelancing, and it's like the worst time to look for clients is when you don't have client work, right? So even when I was freelancing, even when I was full with work, I was still looking for clients, because since that whole process takes time, by the time you're finished this project, you already made the pre-work necessary to get projects in the future. So it's sort of like scales down instead of just waiting to not have jobs and then start looking for that, because then that takes time and that sort of thing. So yeah.
I would just add that the best way to look for clients, in my opinion, is to put your work out there. That's how we basically all answered, like how we got our jobs and stuff. And so, it's just always do personal work and always be updating your website, your portfolio, your resume, etc. I get, people ask me if Gumroad's hiring all the time. That happened today, and I always ask them, like, yeah, just like send me a resume or portfolio. And if you don't have one, or it's out of date by like 2 or 3 years, it's not a good sign. It just tells me that you don't really like what you do that much. You only want to get paid for it. You won't do it for fun. Whether or not that's true, that's just the assumption that if I get lots of resumes every day, like that's the assumption that I have to make, because I can either pick you or I can pick someone who has like a, you know, who clearly like posts stuff every day. So like that's a form of networking. I think it's just like constantly post stuff, go to conventions, do personal art, tweet, Instagram, do all that stuff. And yeah, diversify your income. You can do that with Gumroad.com. Sell stuff on the internet. That's my one pitch.
Do it. You mentioned Twitter. By the way, I love Twitter, even though it's a hell site. And I get political too, I'm sorry. But I love Twitter because you can just have such direct access to both creators and the fan base. And that's insane. Like, Instagram is cool, and it's really good, but it doesn't allow you that form of communication versus if, like, a creator that you love, like, you can just, like, be very polite and, you know, at them or do work that works with them and just or their product. In fact, almost every single IP has a fan page or has a business page on Twitter. And a good way to get like those creators is to do fan art of that particular IP and then tag the official account, because they're always retweeting shit. So like, yeah, so like that's how like Marvel does that sometimes, and sometimes we see like, oh, this is actually like a new person. They might not be ready for the job, but you know, you kind of start seeing people throughout stages. So that's one way to do it, and just like, again, Twitter sucks, but it's really good in terms of networking.
All right, got a question over here.
Mi pregunta va más para lo de las rutinas del día. Fue algo que experimenté hace muy poco y fue con uno de los compañeros de trabajo de los últimos proyectos que tuve. Y fue básicamente que estuve trabajando por 3 días corridos todo el día. Y I got injured my hand. Y quería saber si uno de ustedes pues, ha experimentado por algo similar y cómo ha lidiado con eso, con el trabajo.
I'll answer that question. Let me add something to that real quick. So I'll do something real quick. I personally believe that everybody in general, but like especially artists, like you need to take care of your body, and that means eating well and exercise, right? Because like before, you will think of an artist and you will think of somebody out of shape and you know doing whatever. Which I mean, it's fine if that's. Oh, that's your hand. But I believe this is very taxing on it could be very taxing on your body, especially since you're sitting all day, and there are things that happen with your muscles when you're sitting all day, and you're hunched, and you don't even realize, and all this stuff. So exercising is like you don't have to be like crazy CrossFit or be a athlete or something. You just need to take care of your body.
So when I was
First design of the Infinity Gauntlet.
yeah, that's the Infinity Gauntlet. First iteration. The directors didn't like it. I actually, yes, I feel very strongly about this subject, clearly. When I was at ILM, I got that. And I got diagnosed with repetitive motion syndrome, or it's like it's RSI, I always forget it, but repetitive syndrome injury, something. But what it basically means is that I was painting for way too long. I was in the middle of like both full-time work and freelance. So it was like, go to work, go home, keep working, go to sleep, go to work, go home, keep working. And as I was working, something in my back went, and then suddenly I had pain that I've never felt in both of my hands. And every brushstroke that I made was like painful as hell. Ian McKegg comes by. He's like, "Are you okay?" Because I was looking really, and I'm like, "This hurts." And he's like, "You need to stop painting right now." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure." He's like, "No joke. People lose their ability to paint. There have been many people in the film industry who like were painting or modeling or whatever it is that you do constantly, because this happens in tech too. Carpal tunnel, right? It's the big one. And then suddenly, like, here's this long career, but because you were so obsessed and did it just nonstop all the time, can't, without any breaks, it body up. So I went 2 months without painting. I went into intense physical therapy. I got workers' comp. And it just became like one of those things where it's like, oh shit, I could lose my job forever. I could not paint forever, and it's scary. What helped was reminding yourself to take breaks, set up a program that gives you like every 20 minutes, I usually take like a minute break. Every hour, I take like a 5-minute break or so, or even if it's just like every like 10 minutes, 10 seconds, or just, and do stretches. I started exercising. I've been a lazy piece of shit my entire life, so I never exercised until I got my injury. And I actually, my physical therapist, like, yeah, you need to actually like strength train. You need to build muscles so that all of this, it's your tool. You got to take care of it. So please, 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 please take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, I said like the only, my break every day was to go work out. It was part of my job. That's like how I consider it. It's just like an athlete would train.
Yeah.
They get paid to train. Like I got paid to work out, and it's just part of what you do. Humans are not like hands with the rest of our bodies. We're like, this is like a very small part, but the way we work is like 95% this and 5% like stressing this stuff out. So you just gotta fix that ratio. Otherwise, yeah, you won't be able to do this for decades on end. So yeah, take breaks. I do 25 minutes 5, 25 minutes 5 on everything.
Any other questions? Come on down, or I'll go to you. You're too far. And this is my exercise for the day.
Hi, everybody. Well, my question is, how do you deal with clients that come up to you and say they want to test, to hire you first? Because I had the experience. I had the experience last year. I went to CTN and I had a job interview for this company that they're gonna make a feature film, and I was really excited about it. But then they had me sign an NDA, and they asked for 5 sketches for a specific scene from the movie. So everything was awesome, great. These are really cool. The producer said, "I'll send them over to the art team," and then I never heard back from them, ever. And I've contacted them several times. I call, and that's it. They did tell me that they do. They outsource everything. So I don't know if they stole the ideas or what happened. So I want to know what you guys do about that.
Okay. So, this could be a very controversial thing, and we may all have different opinions, right? I think it's a very personal choice. It's not like a one thing, because, you hear a lot of people saying, oh, never do work for free. But what does that really mean? Because, like, I'll give you an example. Like, if Carlos, our director for Marvel, tells me that he might want to see a concept of how we'll tackle a location in a Marvel movie, I will for sure do that for free just for him to see my work and, maybe give me a chance to, work for it. So, but, I've done a lot of art tests for a lot of companies, and, it was just a risk that I wanted to take because I really wanted to have the more chances or higher percentage for them to see my work. But there have been a lot of times where they have asked for things that I consider like too extreme, right? Like actually recently, a Chinese company asked me for an art test, and I've been freelancing for them for 2 years now. And they asked me for an art test for a full-time position, and it was for, and they didn't tell me, but I knew it was for the same project that I've done freelancing before, right? Yeah, but I guess they didn't know because that company is so big that they just didn't know. Yeah, Netis.
They sure got you.
Huh?
No.
So I literally told them, hey, listen, I've been freelancing for 2 years. I don't know if you knew this because, I've been talking to different people. And, I did this like I showed them the art where I did this like I think it was like 3 months before, 6 months before, and I believe it's for the same project, and I would like to submit this as my art test. And I was very, very clear, very honest, and I wasn't like telling them that that's unacceptable and fighting with that. I was just being just real. So it's sort of like a case by case thing, at least in my perspective.
Well, I mean, I guess the other thing you need to consider is it really depends on like where you're at in your career. Like, do people know your work? How you value your work? Because if you're still looking to get in the industry, you're gonna have to do some work, to show that you can tackle whatever it is they need you to do. I think it's BS for them to ask for free work, but if you need to do it, you need to do it. That's a weird position to be in, though, where you had already been doing work for the project and the company, and they're still asking for. That's odd, but it happens. It happens to. I think it happens to everyone. I've had companies ask for samples. I send them stuff that I've already done that I already got paid for. If you don't like it, then move on. But if you're still looking to break into the industry, you're gonna have to do it. That's the bottom line. You got to prove to them they're the ones with the money, and you're the one that's gonna supply the art. So if you want the job, you got to prove it.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things has already been said. I personally think it's a stupid practice, because I think I could totally understand a company not knowing whether you're good enough or not, but I think companies should pay for art test if they're going to do it, even if it's a minimal fee. And I agree with with everybody here, but specifically the idea that depending on where you are in your career, at some point if somebody's like, hey Carla, can you do an art test for us? I'm like, just here's my website. I have other clients. Bye. But I did do art tests when I was starting out, and that's the thing, right? It is unfortunately how the game is done, but also try to be I did negotiate with some of my earlier art tests and be like, hey, what you're asking for, it's a lot. I'm freelancing. I'm doing, what do you really need to see? That might work, that might not work. It just depends on the level of communication you have with the client. So you're just gonna have to gauge that. But again, because it's how some companies do it, it doesn't happen that often in film, to be honest with you. I think it's mostly games, and is it an animation? Is it a thing?
I did an art test for Castlevania, yeah. But I think it was mostly because the stuff that I had on my portfolio, it was, even though it was mostly fantasy stuff, it wasn't completely the style that they were looking for the show. So I had to sort of prove if I could do a piece. And that will fit the show basically, and they gave me an actual just spend let's say I think they said show me what you can do in 10 hours, for example, and to me that wasn't too bad, and I was really looking forward a studio gig, and it sort of made sense for that time.
And I personally think the system sucks, but even I had to partake in it early on. But the thing that I will say is even if you're just man, I'm not getting paid, if it's a really good opportunity, just give it, just go at it, kill it, murder it. Have it be one of those things where they look at your work and they're like, well, we need to hire them right now. Oh yeah, just go for it.
And they will know.
Yeah, so I do actually have a job. I forgot about answering the other question. I'm working on this project called Gumroadians, which is a new animated series we're producing. So that's almost a full-time gig, meeting with people in LA and stuff, writers and all sorts of folks. So I'm almost on the other side of it, where I'm trying to find artists and stuff. I would probably not ask for an art test, because you should be able to tell from somebody's website if they're a good fit or not. And we're hiring, we're still early, so you just have to go with really qualified people, because I have no idea what I'm doing. So the other person basically like I hire somebody and they're like, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, just whatever you think is cool. It's like yeah, I'm a great client. Because yeah, no, it's like I'm like clients from heaven or whatever, you know. And well, but on the engineering side, we do ask for people to do what we call a coding challenge in the industry, which should take 3 hours or less. And it's just a supply demand thing. Like if there's way more people that want the job, then you have the job. You know, you have jobs for. You need some filtering mechanism. Otherwise, I'm gonna interview all these people, and it's just a way to take this like one-to-one thing, which would be me interviewing everyone individually, which you would basically never get paid to have an interview with someone. Like you wouldn't get paid to do a 3-hour interview at somebody's office or something on a whiteboard. And just makes it a one-to-many where anyone can do it. And I never feel bad. I'm like, look, I will tell people up front, like, I know this sucks. Like, if you don't want to do this, like, you don't have to. But there are people that are going to do these things. And you can skip it. If you're really amazing, or if you get an intro from someone, or you've worked at some company I like, just like you know, if you haven't tried asking, like, this is my work, can I not do the art test because XYZ, I'm busy, or I don't want to, or I'm like, I have enough work as is. They might be like, oh yeah, sure. Like they might be copy pasting a process that they have internally that they've had for a long time. They're just following somebody else's direction. And that's happened before where someone's like, I'm sorry, just like had a kid, like I don't have time for this. Can we skip it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Just sometimes you just have to ask and be, I think Jose does it well. Just like, you don't have to be a dick. Just be nice. Just be really candid, and they'll reward you for that candidness, hopefully with their own as well.
That can't be said enough. Don't ever be an ass or a dick or mean or anything like that. Yeah, it'd be a good any body part. Don't do it. Really, any body part? I'm thinking, yeah, most body parts, yeah. Sorry, but no, because this is such a small, tiny little industry, and people want to work with good people, and if you know. Don't be mean. Don't be an ass. Just be good. And if you're like the best in your class, don't let it get to your head either. Just because like I've met so many artists in my career that were the shiny artist of the artist of the month, and they let it get to their head and they started treating people poorly, and now they can't find work because word got out that they suck working with, and like. You know, there's so much talent and so many great people that want to be a part of it. So like that, just be good. Just be a good human. You'll feel better about it too. Yeah.
All right. Any other question? No.
Yes. Do any of you are you working on personal like IPs or things that you want to develop on your own apart from the work that you're doing for the studios or freelancing? Anyone?
I think as artists, I think we all have like our little projects that we want to do for ourselves and IPs that we want to develop. But, you know, it all comes down to how much time you've got to invest in it, you know? It's tough, you know, because you got to pay the bills. And starting your own IP will not pay the bills at first. It's very hard to get your IP to get to that point. And it sucks because I'm sure throughout history there's been a lot of awesome ideas that didn't get off the ground because they had to pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of that, but I think all artists have a project that they want to develop at some point. Do you?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually in a really busy period of my life, so all my time is devoted for my client work. But I do this thing where I go through like periods where I focus on other people's work. I save enough money, and then I take like 2 or 3 months off and just focus on my own thing. I do that like on and off, like 1 year yes, 1 year yeah, no. But I am clearing my schedule so that my fall is completely free because I want to oil paint. I want to learn how to write. I have a couple of stories that I'd like to work on. I actually want to pixel paint because my boyfriend's a game designer, and he works at Double Fine, which is a really excellent. It's the best. It's a great company, and like we've just been talking about games that we could make, and I found out I could paint in pixels really easily. It's just like painting, and I want to animate. So there's a bunch of stuff that I want to do. There's no specific IP. There's various ideas and various stories that I want to tell, and various things that are just really exciting. I just, but it comes through times, it comes through waves. Sometimes you'll be really busy at your work. Don't be mad at yourself, but it's like, I should be working on my own stuff. Let work take over, but don't also be always in work mode, because it's easy to slip into that mode too, where you're only focusing on client work and not giving yourself enough time. And as artists, it's pivotal that you give time to yourself. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. You can't always be working for someone else's vision. Sometimes you have to work for your own too.
Yeah, I think for the last, because ever since Maria, because of Maria, sort of like my work got like plugged up, and like I had a lot of like stuff that I needed to do, like during that time. And so for the past 2 years, just has been a lot of like, my full-time job, and then just getting all that freelance done. And I think ever since probably like a couple months back, when I finally had like actual time to like figure it out. So right now I'm either trying to learn something new, which recently has been Blender, and then the other time is figuring out different sources of income. So like when the rainy days come, if I get laid off or something happens, recession or whatever, I could have multiple eggs in the basket than just one thing. So
I'll show you the IP we're working on. I wish I could show you some. Wow, that's like saying you're gonna lose weight and everyone claps. You're like, oh, I guess I don't have to. Thanks for the reward. It's called Gumroadians. So it started off as a comic strip. It's kind of funny. What's a good one? We'll just go to the first one. It's pretty. So we started out with this comic strip because it's just fast to iterate on, a little bit cheaper than animation. And so imagine this kind of concept in this world combined with this style of painting. What's a good one? This is pretty good. This kind of like very sort of graphic, 3D I think, but like very graphic. This is kind of what I do have paintings. I just don't have them on this computer, or they're not published yet. But basically, like imagine this scene, but with this rendering.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see. Everyone's like, you're gonna fail. And I'm like, I know.
That's okay.
That's how you learn.
Yeah, that's okay.
I failed to build $1 million company, and now I'll fail to make a movie. So
Okay.
it's the way it goes. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yep.
That's amazing.
This is a question that I usually ask a lot of artists. What is your process when you're in a rut or te da flojera, you're just unmotivated, you don't want to do anything? How do you get out of that slump?
I'll start. When I'm in a rut, I do comfort things. I do things that I know impress me really well. Like, I'll do a study of a face, and then I'm like, that's a good face. And then that kind of gets my confidence going. Sometimes I take a walk. Sometimes I play video games. Sometimes I read. Other times I just like take a deep breath and figure it out. So much of the rut, or the idea of a rut, is just your frustration towards a problem that you've yet to solve. And it's just a puzzle. It's like a puzzle piece, and you just have to find the right puzzle piece and how it fits. So, kind of going through my list of, okay, what's going on? Is it my anatomy? Is it my lighting? Is it my colors? Is it my, kind of go through the list of your fundamentals, because usually the answer to your solution lies there. But yeah.
Yeah, pretty much that. I will also say that you have to be careful to use that as an excuse to stop working, because sometimes you really like. I mean, sometimes you don't have the luxury to do something else than to figure it out, because you may have a deadline, you may have a client or something, and sometimes you just need to go through it, right? Whether it's to figure out a different way to get there, or just continue to try or whatever. That could also happen. So like my main thing about those thing though, that feeling, I think most people will use it as an excuse to say, yeah, I can't do this, and then they just stop. So I'll be very cool. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying, like an addition to what you say.
Can I add on to that super quick? And I'll pass it around, but just to add on that, two points that are very important here. It's the same thing with inspiration. A lot of people say, oh, I can't paint until I have inspiration. Inspiration is a fleeting thing. You can't count on it to work. You really can't. Some days you'll I'm painting boots again, or I'm painting this stupid thing again. All right, cool. You listen to a podcast and you just do the things. Some days you're just like, this is the best thing anyone's has ever made. And you're like that Neil deGrasse moment where he's like traveling through time. You're like, because the inspiration is so good. You can't wait for that. And it's the same. They're kind of the same side of the coin. Inspiration. I mean, two sides of the coin. You got inspiration and you got the rut. But the only way to break through all of those and to not wait for either of those to ruin you or to not ruin you is to just fall back on technique. Again, if your technique is solid, you know how to figure out those troubles or those problems. So if you're frustrated or if you're in a rut, again, you go through that list. Or if you can't be inspired, you go through that list, and maybe through the act, even the act of creation of painting itself is extremely, it's scientifically, they're trying to figure out what it does to your brain, and it's like really, really, really good. They use it for healing. They use it for all kinds of things. So even just figuring out how to solve the puzzle will give you a boost. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to add those two. Yeah, I was just like, ugh.
Well, I don't know if my answer is a little different because of the industry that I'm in. I work with publishing, and one of the things that I really struggled with when I first started, I struggled learning that not everything is going to be a hit. And in publishing, things go very fast, and you have deadlines, and you got to meet those deadlines, because if you don't meet the deadline, you throw off the pipeline, and now you're costing the company money. So they are not going to listen to you saying, you're in a rut. Sometimes you just got to get it done, and that's it. I guess it depends where the question's coming from, because if this is your job, then that's what it is. It's a job. Just get it done. Not, in my case, if I'm working on a comic book, not every page is going to be a fucking Picasso, So as long as I get the story across and I'm doing the storytelling and you can understand the message, let's move on to the next. I can't expect every page to be amazing. And that's the one thing that I struggled with, because as artists, we tend to be perfectionists, and we can go over the same thing over and over and over because we're not satisfied with the way it came out. But when it's a job, and you just, is it done? Is it understandable? Is it good enough? On to the next. Now, I say it depends on where the question's coming from, because if it's your personal work and you're your own boss, hey, take your time. But yeah, if it's a job, just get it done.
Yeah, I don't like this question at all. I think it's just an excuse not to put in the work, honestly, like 99.9% of the time. I asked myself this question all the time, like, oh, I have this idea for this sci-fi thing, and I just don't, it hasn't clicked yet. And it's like the only way it's going to click is if you write a terrible version of it, and then you make it better. Talking about a Marvel movie, right? It's unlikely that the first draft is what you see in the movie theater. They don't sit around a room for years. I mean, they do that too, and they still come up with something that's that's going to take a lot of iteration, it's. I think people expect to produce to P Gold or whatever, and it's just not what happens. you just and you can always paint, you can always write, you can always do these things. Like you could paint these 3 water bottles in this mic, and it could take you 4 hours, and you'd learn a bunch of stuff doing that. And so I just think mostly it's an excuse if you can't paint what you want to paint, like you have some idea in your head, just paint something else, and you'll just get a lot better at doing that. And I think that the proof of that question being just kind of misplaced is like the fact that like professional artists stop having that question because if they didn't do the work, they'd not get paid. You know, it's like there was this controversy in my little community when I was living in Utah with this this person who was photographing what's the word, shooting photos for a clothing brand, and people were complaining that like and you know there weren't enough diverse people or whatever, and she was like, well, you know, we're in Utah, like there's not that many diverse people, and I was like, well, I live in Utah, if you want me to model, and well, you know, and my thing was just like, I guarantee you, if I was like, I'll give you $1,000 if you just bring like a group of people that are sort of quote unquote diverse to my house, you do it tomorrow because $1,000. And you know, people are like, oh, I need to come up with this concept. I can't do it. Like it's a cactus mixed with a boat. And I'm like, I'll give you $1,000 to do it. You'll come up with something almost guaranteed. So just like pretend that there's someone offering you money or whatever you need to get motivated. But like at the end of the day, like just know that excuse is probably BS. Yeah, sorry.
I'm gonna skip to the questions you guys had because you pretty much answered them throughout the entire show. But I'm gonna jump to the last one because that one's pretty interesting, and I think it's gonna be really helpful for a lot of people here. What is the one piece of advice you would love to have given your younger self that you know now?
Do your taxes.
Do your taxes.
I want to know the backstory behind that advice. I've always paid my taxes. Didn't know there was another option. There's not, I guess. No. I would say just be patient and like, you know, we all got our careers, and I think everybody does because someone else made the decision that we were like worth their time, you know, like they gave us a job or a gig or you know, invited us for coffee, and that's not really in your control, and it might take a long time and might happen tomorrow. You just don't really know. And I love this quote I heard recently, which is like to thrive you have to survive. And so if you can just get to a place where you're able to produce and get better on a daily or weekly basis, and you can make ends meet, like you will eventually, like things will eventually work out for you. I believe that. Obviously there's survivorship bias, so you're listening to people that it worked for, but like I really believe that like if you like you look at the work that's on these websites, and like you know that all these people would get jobs professionally eventually. It might have happened with somebody else, different gig, but yeah, just be patient because you don't know when it's going to happen, but be confident that it will.
You said something earlier that I kind of mentioned to the group that was in my class earlier today, but the way you phrased it, I liked it better. It was give yourself time to be a student, right? Is that what you said? Like really take advantage of your time while you're here, because like this is the only time you get to mess up without horrible consequences. You know what I'm saying? Because you're a student, so this is your time to make mistakes without horrible consequences and learn from them so you can apply it to the real life when you graduate. And if you get a job, you know, that's when you're going to apply everything you learn here. Because sometimes we get stuck on wanting to advance so far ahead that we forget to give yourselves the time to, you know, to learn. And the time that you're in school is the time for you to make mistakes without horrible consequences. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was.
Damn, you dug deep.
Whoa.
I saw you scrolling like 5 minutes in there.
Work hard. Look at that. Well, anyways, no, but seriously, give yourself the time to be a student, and you can mess up all you want while you're in school. But when you're out there, like Carla said, this is a very tight industry, and word gets around very quickly. Like you probably get one chance, you can probably get one screw up, but after your second screw up, word starts to get around. And I know a lot of guys that are very talented, and they're struggling to get jobs just because they screwed up. So this is your time. Oh, and never stop learning. Don't be too cocky to learn. We never stop learning. Even after we got the jobs, even though we got our dream jobs and we're doing what we always wanted to do, we never stop learning. And I think that that's what separates the good ones from the bad ones. Because once you think that you know it all and that you're better than everyone around you, that's the very moment that you stop growing as an artist. If you keep learning, you keep progressing, and it only makes you better. Yeah.
Sorry to scroll while you were talking. It's just I have specific things I want to say.
You can go back to my calves.
No. That was really good advice, though. You're all killing it because so far the advice has been very, just like good life advice, like just genuinely good life advice. I want to give, practical. This is 3 steps on how to improve your painting, your drawing, whatever it is that you want to do. If it's art based, if it's painting based, if it's whatever based, here are the 3 things you need to do. Yes, I'm about to sell you some snake oil. Number one, master study. A master studies changed my life. This is where you pick whatever artist you love, preferably if they're dead, because then you don't feel bad about it. They're like, oh, you don't compare yourselves to someone who's dead. So I love Sargent. This particular painting is a Van Dyck master study, and you're literally retracing the steps. This is the slow study. This is the one that you spend a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long it takes you to get it to look as close as you can. Because by doing that, you're literally learning so much. With this little painting alone, I learned that if you just paint the corner of the eyes, the iris, and maybe this part up here, you get the illusion of an eye. I learned how to render noses from this painting because it's all soft shapes. It's not really a strong mark. So master study. Oh, sorry. Wait, really? Oh, this is the master, clearly. Like, come on, dude. That's really good. And this was my student, like, bleh. Like, you can usually tell because I lost patience here. I'm like, I'm not fucking doing those ruffles. So that's number 1. Number 2, this I did while I was working, and it gave me like the ability to work in film, is do film studies, and these were the fast studies. These we used to do in lunch, so we called them lunchies. Studies, lunchies. So we would just go and like screen cap websites. You can find them everywhere, and just look at your favorite films or even films in general. And these are just 15 minutes. 15 minutes where you're just doing shape, color, and like value, and that's like all you're doing. And I learned so much just by doing this little stupid study, because remember, so much of art is just quick. The more you practice it, the more you learn it. So by doing these quick studies, I learned so much about color harmony. I learned about composition. I learned about lighting. I learned about mood. I cannot state how important this study was. So that's the second one. And the third one, and this is the one that whenever I say it, most students are like, I don't know. And if I find it, I want to show you guys, but I don't know. I haven't been through my blog in like forever, yo. But the next one is literally go outside and paint from life. Go paint. Go plein air paint. Go paint your surroundings. Go paint your neighborhood. Go to a coffee shop. Draw and paint people over, quietly and discreetly. You don't want to freak them out.
Go Bob Ross.
But
Paint a
but
happy little cloud.
Yeah, but I'm trying to find. There was a period in San Francisco. Here we go. All I was doing was just plein air painting, and this was like a couple of years ago, and that's all I ever did. That's all I, Yeah. He plein airs all the time too, so he knows what's up. But by doing so, you'll see how light works. You'll see how your eyes actually work, how your eyes focus, how like if you see or you're looking at something in particular, your eyes tend to like really, really define it. But then as you go to the peripherals, it's all more a matter of like getting the right shapes and colors right. Because like your peripherals, like everything's kind of blurry. We don't see in HD. And seeing like light change in real time and get really mad about it because you're painting and you're like, oh shit, no. And then suddenly it's like super bright. You're like, all right, well, you got to figure it. It's the best exercise for any artist. And the same thing goes to like drawing people in cafes or wherever. Become a creep, do it. So those three things, and I'm giving you guys this because this has literally changed people's, like, I've gone to enough conventions to where, like, I see the same people year and year, and the people who follow this, their work just improves. I know because, like, that's what I did. I should charge you for this. We'll talk. But no, it's one of those things where it's, like, literally just, like, master study, that's the long one. Film studies, that's the short one. And then going outside and painting. And that's what I would say. That's the fun one.
Really quick, like like your question about like what do you do if you're not inspired or whatever. Like none of these require any inspiration at all. You could do this tomorrow for 4 or 5, 6, 10 hours, and that's why those people get so good is because they're not waiting to be inspired. They're learning. If you do this, like you will learn so much from every single painting, and like I've been painting for I don't know a year and a half, 2 years. And like those paintings aren't terrible, and I had a job the whole time, but I was painting from life like every week, 20 hours probably, either painting or drawing from life, and you just get better. It doesn't require any inspiration, anything from imagination. I can't do anything from imagination. Don't ask me about that. But that's I don't know. That's why I think it's so important. It's like why that question I don't know irritates me sometimes. It's like. All these things are beautiful, better than any painting I could do, and it doesn't take any. And there is inspiration in here. There is creativity happening. Like inspiration and creativity are not the same. There's you're editing, you're making a ton of decisions doing this, transferring from life to the sketchbook or to the canvas or whatever. So you can still be incredibly creative and become a better painter from this. Actually, probably better than you could actually applying it to do something out of your head, in my limited view.
Really also to add on, if you ever want to get a hold of me through Twitter, if you do any of these studies and tag me, I'll be so happy. So just like don't do it every day because then I'll be like, okay, I get it, you're studying. But like do a study and tag me, and then do a study again in like 6 months or like a year and tag me again, maybe shorter. I love to see people's progression. So there you have it, but not every day. But you should study every day.
Okay, so I'll be quick. I have a very obsessive and competitive, the way I am. And so personally, there's a quote that says, macro patience, micro speed. So for the long term, be very patient, but for the little things every day, be fast. And the one of the biggest mistake that I did, especially when I was in the AI and during those whole years, was I never learned how to love the process, right? And so loving that process is like so important, at least for me right now, because like it's what's gonna take me to the end. Like if I don't love that in between, I'm just gonna be miserable, since I start until I finish, right? So learning to love all that process, whatever that is, that will be like the main thing.
And do your taxes.
It's not much you can say after that. So, any other questions? Oh wow, gonna be a while. grab a seat.
Hello. Whoop. Okay. Hello.
Okay, great.
We can't hear you.
Scream it. We're Puerto Rican. We're loud. You got this.
Yeah.
So I was wondering. Excellent. Alrighty then. Hi. I was wondering, have you had any experiences with arrogant art directors? And if so, how would you handle them? Do you stand up for your work, which is what most of us would like to do, but unfortunately, I think I speak for a majority here that most of us tend to fear that spectrum and back away in a submissive manner just so we can keep the job.
I know you. Yeah. Okay, so I think we all have deal with that, but also I think you also, I mean, there's a lot of those, right? But sometimes their job, could come across as, if you take it too personally, like if they give you like a critique or something about your work, like say, they might say, this doesn't work. You gotta redo it or whatever the case may be. Sometimes you gotta be careful, not to confuse that with arrogance, because that's their job type of thing, right? So, and I think that you starting to understand that when you start working, you have people under you, when you actually have to give them, and when you give critique, you have to be nice. You don't have to be, arrogant when you give critique. But sometimes as artists, we take it too personal in the workspace when they're critiquing our job. So that could also happen, but there's a lot of those. So yeah.
Yes. The story that I do want to tell is a silly one, but it really, what Jose just said is really important. Like, you do have to take a little bit of the ego out, because again, like, this is a collaborative team effort. If you have, it is the art director's job to literally tell you, and direct an entire project to look in a cohesive way. So, it might just be that even though your concept is great, it stands out too much in contrast with everything else. So there's a million and one good reasons. And you really, really have to, like, never take it too personally, never care too much about, the critiquing aspect of it, if it's done in a professional and healthy way. With that said, sometimes you get weird requests that you can disagree as an artist, because it's also your job to provide a visual solution, right? And to be like, you can have this, you can totally have this, but this is gonna happen. And it has happened. I've had clients in the past, in marketing, it's always with marketing. That just, but marketing, we were working on this project of some athletes, and they were all wonderfully charging. Everybody was heroic, and they were all having like striking a really strong pose. And I sent in some really cool sketches that I was like really, really happy with, and I sent them, and they came back and they're like, well, we want all of the athletes to have props. I'm like, okay, let's have props. And so they gave everybody like silly props, like the kid's holding a boombox. This person's holding their medal. This other person's holding their medal. She's holding her skis. And this girl is holding the #1 fan, because she's a fan, but she was a gold Olympic winner with a gold #1 fan, foam finger on. So I had to back and be like, if I was in her position, I would be offended that everybody else had something cool, but I had the stupid finger. No. But they, in the end, the client still wanted it. So I gave them the option, and it did lose us like 3 weeks of solid work, because of course the athlete came back and said, no, I don't want that at all. And so I did charge them a little extra just because. they had us loose weeks, and then I had to crunch for it. So I was like, that's on you. I told you. So sometimes you do have to, offer, because you're not a wrist. You're not an art director or producer's wrist. You also are a craftsman. And again, you need to offer solutions. And sometimes like they'll have something in mind, and take it, pick your battles. Sometimes you'll have moments where like, this is dumb, but okay. But then other times you'll have moments where it's just like, okay, no, this is gonna completely derail us, and we're gonna lose time. So just pick your battles. But the number one thing is just be diplomatic, no matter what. Even if you're like, this person sucks, and all you want to write is just like a hate mail, be diplomatic. You can, with diplomacy, you can get away with the best burns, and they won't even know. I tell you, they'll be like, thank you. So just be diplomatic. Don't be an ass, and just pick your battles.
I really can't add anything else. That's exactly the way I would answer the question.
I missed the question, but I just wanted to say I had to make it. I was like, which bathroom?
Which bathroom?
Damas or caballeros? I picked the right bathroom, though. There was no icon.
Yeah,
Was there?
Yeah.
I don't, oh, I didn't see it. I don't know. I don't see gender.
It's abstract.
What was the question?
Bad art. Shitty. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess I can't really. Yeah. I mean, just, find better work, honestly. And, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I have so many friends that like have terrible jobs, and I'm like, honestly, like the answer is unlikely to, like, they're probably gonna be who they are forever.
Yeah.
And if you either deal with it or you don't. One of the great things about starting your own company is you get to choose who you work with. So I've never had to work with anybody I don't like, which is really nice. Or briefly, sometimes I realize I don't like them, and we have a frank conversation, and I win. They change or they leave. Yeah. So that's the way it goes.
Yeah, really quickly, you say something really good too. Like, if it's like, if we're talking about like toxicity, right? Like someone who is abusive, someone who is manipulative or just bad, get out, or find other places to work, or or talk to your other coworkers too. Actually, here's something that happened to a friend of mine. One of their leads was actually really abusive to the women, in a way where like he would tell them, verbally abusive, not like, "Bleh," but like, your work is shit, this and this. He would disparage everybody. He'd do it one-to-one, and they were all thinking, well, he's doing it to me, something wrong with me. Well, they started talking, and they found out that it was the entire studio that this person was doing it to. So they got fired because they were being abusive pieces of shit. So sometimes if you're like in a team scenario, politely ask your coworker if it's like really, really abusive. We're not talking of like basic art directing. No, we're talking about really abusive folks. Talk to your coworkers, because sometimes, that abuse isn't just one person. It's usually everybody. And, try and see if you can do some kind of action together. Be like, hey, this person is doing it. We take it up to HR, HR. Take it up to HR, or take it up to whatever. No, HR helps, actually. Sometimes. And then just, or, and in your plan B, just escape. Just get out. Woo.
I already answered.
You're gonna add anything? Oh, you already did.
You were in the bathroom.
Was I?
You were in the bathroom.
I never left.
What?
I went to the bathroom. What? Okay. 3 more questions.
Emotionally in the bathroom. Spiritually in the bathroom.
I won't assume your location.
Good afternoon. I was dragged here by my brothers. They're more artistic than me. But it was interesting to see Sayil here. I wasn't expecting, someone like him here. So I just wanted to direct the question to him, and you guys can chime in if you want. It's that, how do you dedicate or separate time for those weekend projects like Gumroad? How, and then also, if those weekend projects actually become a business, what would you recommend? Would you recommend like going and start bootstrapping it yourself with whatever funds you can and try and, friends and family, or try and go and shop it around VC or maybe angel funds or something like that?
Yeah. So I just made a kind of a commitment to myself that I would always just set aside time. I treat it like a job, like even this like painting and writing. Like for me, I'm a really lazy person. So unless I figure out a way to structure a system that makes me productive, like I'm just not going to do anything. So I force myself, like I'll pay for classes, even though, I'll pay for, I'll pay up front for like a bunch of open studios so I know I'm going to go. That stuff really helps me. Same thing with weekend projects. Like I would just, you can do them collaboratively with someone. Then you have a buddy system. But it was just like, I'm just going to launch one weekend project every month. That's just what I'm going to do. And, just if it's a good idea, bad idea, it doesn't matter because I'm going to learn a lot from that process. And I did. And then in terms of like, if one of those things takes off, I am of the mind now that I would probably see how far I could get by myself. This is actually kind of the same advice I've heard on working on this animated thing, where people are like, I've like could potentially collaborate with like a production studio and things like that. And most folks in the industry are like, see how far you can get by yourself, because if it's you're gonna just lose control of what you make to some degree. Yeah, if you can get as far as you can, like, do that. So, even with Gumroad, I took it as far as I could. I built the whole thing myself, and then investors started approaching me saying, "Hey, like, do you want to do this full time? We'll give you a bunch of money. You can quit your job and you can just work on this project." And I didn't say yes for months, for 6 months or something like that. And that's just the way to go, in my opinion, is like, because then when you do make the jump, you're so prepared to make it, because you could have made it months or years ago. And so when you do, you're like, you already have a network, you already have all these people that you're ready to reach out to. You're gonna sort of almost be successful by default because all the failures happened while you were employed somewhere else or in school. You don't want to make some of these decisions when it's life or death for the business. You ideally want to make those decisions when you're in school or working for somebody else. If it would be like saying like, oh, I have this brilliant idea for an IP, I'm going to stop doing freelance and just work on it and pitch to Netflix, and then that's going to be my thing. It's like, yeah, good luck. That's going to be really hard. What you can do is work on it, show people if people are interested, like have a deck or have images that you can show on your phone, and then if there's an opportunity, you'll have it to go present, but you're not waiting for it. And I always use this this piece of advice, which is if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. It's kind of the same thing. Replace money for job. If you want a job, like the worst way to get it, in my opinion, is to go around asking people for it. But if you're like, hey, I have this portfolio, I want to do this at some point. I'm not asking you for a job. At some point in the future, I want to do this. Like, what are my weak spots? Everybody will help you answer that question. And if you're good enough, they will offer you a job, like Ian, for example. Because these people are always looking. Everyone's always looking for new projects. Netflix is waiting for things to throw money at. It's true. It's just true. And if they're not ready to throw money at you, it's like time plus prep, right? Luck equals time plus prep. It's like timing plus prep, maybe. It's the same thing. Like, you have to be ready, and the timing has to be right. Just because they say no doesn't mean you're good enough. It just means that's not the thing that they want right now, especially in Netflix case when they're just like looking at algorithms and they're like, oh, we need like a this type of show or whatever. Yeah. And yeah, just and keep working on it. And you can totally bootstrap it today. Like, there's so many tools out there. It's never been easier to like process payments and do all these sorts of things, really without anybody else's permission. That's my whole rule, is like I never want to ask anybody else for permission to do anything. I either decide it's worth doing and then I do it, or I don't do it. I don't ask anybody for permission. Not my thing. What do you think?
What he said.
Yeah, all that.
Cool.
Any other questions? 2 more questions? You got one? I can't see you. I'm blinded by the giant afterburner lights.
Yeah, my question is like, what's the best time to start networking and stuff? Because like, I want to start in comic book and animation, but I'm kind of hesitant to start networking while I'm like still studying.
There's no. Yeah. Now, get on your phone right now.
Yesterday.
But here's the thing: networking is, and you said this earlier as well, is not like, don't harass people online to look at your work and ask for jobs. When we say networking, is like, get to know the people that you're inspired by. Through the internet, you have access to everyone at any time, at all times. You just, reach out and just, try to get to know people. Go to conventions, talk to the artists at conventions. That's actually, I think, you can do it at any time, but the best time to do it, cons. Go to the bar after the convention's done. She had the story. I've been in that position as well. That's the best time to network, and just be yourself, be genuine. That's another really good piece of advice. Always be yourself. Don't try to impress people being something you're not. We can smell the bullshit, and it sucks when people are trying to blow smoke up your ass, when they're trying to be too nice just to get something out of it. Just be yourself, be confident, and you can network at any time. Because the thing is, what you're going to get out of that networking, you can get one of two things. Either you're going to improve your skills by becoming friends with people that know what they're doing and can help you improve your skills. And by the time you're good enough, that's probably going to land you a job. So there's no right or wrong time to do it. The sooner you start, the better you're off.
Yes. To all, it's so funny because so many things like yes to all of that and a little addendum. Yeah. But, so yes, the best time is right now. It's one of those things where it's like Jose mentioned it earlier, like the time where you want, you don't want to find new clients is when you don't have clients. It's the same thing with networking, right? Like the time that you want to have network, or you want to already, have established it, and it takes years sometimes. But number one big thing is like, yes, approach them, be yourself, be polite, but don't expect anything from anybody either. Yeah. That's a huge one, because I get folks who are just like, Carla, you can get me a job at Marvel, and I'm like, I wish. And it's just like, that's the intent from a person, and then you're the other, the person that's talking to you, on the other side, they've been wanting to talk to you for a long time because you're the person that's going to make their dreams come true. So they have that high expectation of you. But what you see from the other side is, I'm a piece of meat. I'm not even a human to you. Like, I'm just a job. That's not cool. And so you have to approach, people, especially if people that you're like, they're high up in the industry. Go slow. Sometimes it takes years. For me, I built my at least illustration network by just going every year and showing them my work with no expectation of anything. Just, I want to know what you think. And then, like, that's it. I don't hang around awkwardly while they're talking to their peers and go with them to, like, bars, because that's also annoying. Like, I'm, just kind of slowly, little by little, start introducing myself to those circles. And then little by little, they'll a year will pass and be like, oh, hey, I remember you. You came back. You show them your work again. And they're like, you have improved. And you repeat that formula for a while. So it takes time. That's why you network now. Because networking isn't like, hey, I just met you and this is crazy. Here's a job, so call me maybe. Yeah, what's up? I just did that live. But no, like, it takes time. It takes time. So don't wait until you feel like something's perfect, because it'll never really feel that way anyway. So just go to conventions, go to events like this, talk whenever you can. Don't expect anything from anybody. So yeah.
All that. Try not to think about networking because networking is not applying for a job. Networking is just trying trying to be part of the community and the family of the industry. So whether you get a portfolio review or not, it doesn't matter as you're networking. The point is just to be part of the group, whether it's by if everybody's doing like a after party thing going there and just talking about stuff non-art related and just life stuff. That's a great way to network, because then they see you as another person, not as a student that's trying to get a job, right? So just and it's very weird, because like when you think networking, you think about like doing some work, but it has to be like so natural for it to work, right? So you have to just keep it natural and just organic. It's just gonna flow with it. Like, don't try to push it or anything like that.
Two things. One, I like this line, stop networking, start making friends. Because that's really the intent, is to just meet people, make friends, talk about whatever you're interested in. People are very multi-dimensional. Like, we're not just full-time whatever face we put on the internet. And then also, like, make friends and sort of quote-unquote network with your peers. I think that's often missed at some of these things. But like, I'm friends with billionaires, and I did not meet them when they were billionaires. I met them when we were at the same level. And it's, like, that's just, at some point, like, it's just impossible, frankly, to network with certain people because they're a level above you or they're 10 years older than you. I thought I'd move to Silicon Valley and I'd like become friends with all these people I sort of followed on Twitter or something like that. And no. Like, they have kids. Like, what am I? I was like 19. Like, why would they hang out with me? That's weird. Like, they'd hang out to invest in my business or whatever, but like they're not friends, and we're social, quote unquote. Like, we see each other at events, we email each other, we follow each other on Twitter or whatever, but like, we're not friendly, or we're not friends. We're friendly, but like, the most like, I don't know, successful people I know are people that I did not meet because they were successful. It's because they just happen to be. I mean, you three were all at AI, and that's like a connection that means more. Like, you do things for each other, just at a different level because of that connection. Because it sort of just like, it just shows something about who you are, what and you're not looking for like, oh, you just emailed me because you just want a job, or we're just friends because you wanted something from me. And the truth is, if like, I have all these investors that are all like incredibly rich and successful, and I would love to be friends with them all. But we started off the relationship in like a sort of a business context, and it's almost impossible to like change that. Like, that's just what it. And so if you approach somebody like, oh, you're the person that's going to get me this, or that is giving me feedback, then the next time you see them at a con, you're going to be like, hey, here's an update on my you're never going to have the opportunities to. And so I think people come to this event and they're like, oh, we need to network with these 4 people on stage or whatever, or these 3 people on stage, and just network with each other. It's like multiple of you will be incredibly successful, likely more successful than the 4 of us, and you have to be patient with that. I also like the phrase, be impatient with action, impatient with action, patient with results. So like, always be working on your stuff, but like, be patient with it might take a long time, but almost guaranteed that will happen. And you never know what the industry is going to look like or any of these things anyways. So it looks so different than it did 10 years ago. Who knows?
Last question. The closer. I see a half hand. See? No? Yeah, there we go. Go ham.
Okay, so my question is, what would your recommendation be for up-and-coming artists in regards to like protecting their art from like art thieves? Like, when you don't have in like at hand, like for example, like copywriting it, or I've seen that there's the option of watermarking, but it's sometimes frowned upon, or yeah. Like that's pretty much
Yeah,
the.
okay. So again, this might be a controversial thing, and everybody might have different opinions. But my opinion is, I think up and coming artists worry too much about that, and they get distracted and like, all right, they just use that as an excuse to not share their work, and especially if you're starting out, you need to share your work. So like, if you have such a great idea that might get stolen, you might not be where you're at right now. So I'll just be very careful with like that sort of like, yeah, I was gonna say excuse, but yeah, that mindset of trying to protect your work, because I've gotten things stolen, and like I've had people more worry about my work being stolen than me being worried about my work. Like they'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna give you, the lawyer's number so you can call him," and I'm like, "You think I have time for that?" Like, they're not really like getting millions of dollars out of my work. If my work was that great, like I probably wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So like,
It's actually a compliment.
Huh?
Getting your work stolen. It's actually kind of like a compliment.
I mean, I don't see it as anything really. Like the clients that I work for, they know the type of work that I'm doing. I'm always constantly making work anyways. So like, unless you're like working on a special IP that you plan to pitch to like a movie director or whatever, like a lot of artists just keep that as a secret because they just gotta do it. But just share your work because you need to share it to get jobs anyway. So
Yeah. But it all really depends on the situation as well. Like for example, on Facebook, shit gets stolen all the time. And like the best defense for that, unfortunately, is just to get like a bunch of like angry enough people. I've riled up a couple of folks online because Sashing Teng got like her Mega Man image stolen, and it was everywhere on hoodies for a while. And that's an old one, hey. And yeah, what's up? I ain't afraid. But it's one of those things where it's like Sashing Teng got her shit stolen, and this Australian company, these are old, but this Australian company who just like went ham and just stole so much stuff. But the solution to that was just like a bunch of angry community, and they actually eventually got shut down. But Facebook makes it so easy for your stuff to get stolen. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about it too much. The only time that I've ever seen it be like legit, and I've had my stuff stolen too, but it was like a Magic the Gathering fan site that got a bunch of my personal work and started. But if like someone like say like Urban Outfitters, which they do it all the time, stole my work, then I'm fucking lawyering up because I know they're getting millions. So like that's the situation, right? But most of the time it's just like this random like mom and pop place, and if it really bothers you, like you can always send them like a strongly worded letter. Go look at like a cease desist on Google. That scares people immediately and they'll take it down. But like but just share work. Don't even worry about it. Like if you see it at some point, you'll be like, oh. And if it's like something like, for example, like an IP or something of that nature, and it really does, I don't know, just share it, man. It's fine. It's okay.
I got one more thing. Hold on. So, so another thing, I don't know if you guys agree, but like, I will restrain for like putting like huge watermarks on your artwork because it's like I'm more distracted by the watermark than the actual artwork. So like my concern would be just put your little name on the side, and I can read that. I don't need to see like your artwork merged with like your thing, and yeah.
So I have a funny story about stolen artwork, because the person who stole my work worked for the company. Well, I'm just gonna say the story. So back when the new Star Wars movies were coming out, someone in the production posted a picture of a stormtrooper helmet from an angle where you couldn't really see it. So I got really excited, and I did a bunch of like interpretations of what I thought the stormtrooper helmet was gonna look like for the new movies. And I posted them. Sure enough, a few months later, I see that there's people taking my image and making products, you know, taking advantage of the hype for the movies. They started making products. But the funny thing is, an artist that worked for merchandising at Lucasfilm used my design for the helmet and put it on official Lucasfilm products. But what the hell am I gonna say? You know, I'm doing fan art and they use my fan art for products. I'm not gonna sue them over that. I just thought that was funny. But it happened. Right? I should have gotten some money for that, right? But it happens.
But then we get into like a but then we get into like a weird like chicken or egg situation.
Yeah. What came first? Well, I posted it so you can see the date when I posted it. That was the funny part. But it's true what you said. You know, rile up people because a lot of people saw that my shit was being stolen, and I didn't have to say anything. Like a lot of the people that follow me just went for it. They attacked the people
Get the
selling my
pitchforks.
stuff. Yeah.
Just get some pitchforks.
But yeah, I just thought that was funny. But yeah, it's gonna happen to all of us. It's happened to all of us. It's gonna happen to you. With IPs, like if you have an idea that you're trying to protect, I can understand you not sharing that online. That's obvious. But if it's just your artwork, you really have to put it out there. Like, that's just BS. Like he said, that's just an excuse for you not to put your stuff out there. Some people are just scared to put their stuff online, and they're like, oh, I just don't want it to get stolen. No, fuck it, put it up.
Unless it's an IP, because that is actually.
Unless it's a Stormtrooper helmet, you know, Lucas.
None of my artwork has yet to be stolen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Please steal my artwork. No, I think it's honestly some of the best, one of the best things that can happen to you, especially if the internet goes crazy, because you're probably better off on the other side when you have tens of thousands of people that now know your work, and things like, obviously I don't wish it upon anybody, but like there's a silver lining. Also, just on copyright, like you can't copyright anything. It just is copyright. You can trademark things, you can patent things, but you can't copyright anything that's sort of intrinsic to the nature of what you make. So don't worry about it. And if it becomes like a big enough deal, like if somehow this, like you could sue them, it is copyright already, just by making it and putting it out there. Actually, putting it out there is quite important because then you have proof that you were the first person to do it. Whereas if somehow they found it, and then they made something and there's no historical record, then you have no claim. So actually, the answer is to share it more is probably like the best way to protect yourself in those cases, which are rare. And yes, it's like people email me and they're like, hey, I have this idea for a startup, or I have a startup, and like I want your money or your advice, and I'm like, cool, what is it? And